What do you get when you confine 9 academics in a room for a week and ask them to completely rethink a master track? The Aerospace Structures and Materials department recently ran just this experiment, and in this video we would like to give you a glimpse into that process and some of the innovative education ideas that emerged. Before we can jump into the innovative ideas that were generated over this week, it is important to understand the context in which they evolved. In other words, what was guiding and inspiring the team in their task? One of the sources of inspiration was the new TU Delft vision for teaching and learning, which was presented to the group by Hans Hellendorn and his team. The core message of this vision is that teaching and learning is, and should be, more than just technical content. It is about growth, both personal and within a discipline, which enables students to discover the full spectrum of knowledge, skills, and the mindset they need to become proactive, resilient, and socially responsible TU Delft engineers. Furthermore, these qualities need to be cultivated in an environment which promotes reflection in the learning process. There is so much more to this vision we could talk about and discuss, so we will make sure to invite Hans and his team to present it to the entire department at a later date. But for now, I would like to move on to some other factors that served as inspiration for the team in re-envisioning our master track. The first factor that the team felt strongly about was the need for a collective departmental responsibility for the education we deliver. Practically, this would require a shift from the individual instructor to a collective departmental ownership of courses. This would reserve interconnections designed between them and provide space and opportunity for everyone within the department to contribute to education within our own master track. The second factor recognized by the team is the need to provide a soft landing for our incoming students. Students could greatly benefit from the time and space to adjust to the educational style of our department and to repair any deficiencies in their entry knowledge. Lastly, the team identified a need for more authentic assessment within the track. We need to foster an environment where students study for the sake of learning and not simply study to pass a test, and our assessment method should reflect this. Still with me so far? Now that we have established some of the key motivating factors for the team, it's time to take a look at some of the ideas that emerged over the week. First, we will start with a novel idea for the ASM core. The core of the ASM track represents the baseline of knowledge and skill that we feel is required of all graduates of the ASM track. It is also the entry point into the program where the tone for our education and student expectations are set. This makes it the ideal space to explore changes that reflect the sources of inspiration previously discussed. Our concept for the core is to model it after the aircraft certification process. In this process, the certification regulations lay out the intended outcome for the entire certification process. In other words, the what, not the how. It is then up to the certification authorities and the aircraft designers to come together and agree upon how compliance with the regulations will be demonstrated. Often well-established means of compliance are used. However, deviations from this practice occur when such means of compliance are no longer in line with the intent of the regulations. Sorry for the lesson in aircraft certification, but I promise it does relate to our concept. We can adapt this to represent the process of certifying that students meet the learning objectives of our program. We do this by replacing the certification regulations with the learning objectives, the certification authorities with the teaching staff, and the aircraft manufacturers with the students. The learning objectives detail what the student should be capable of, while the means of compliance details how a student can demonstrate that this has been achieved. Now for the real kicker. Teaching staff have recently become concerned about the validity of established means of compliance such as written final exams and take-home assignments. Strategies such as studying to the test and tools such as ChatGPT are allowing students to pass in a manner that is not in line with the intent of the learning objectives. To deal with this, our concept is to have students take on the responsibility of demonstrating their compliance with the learning objectives of the course. They will have to convince the teaching staff that they comply with the learning objectives using a learning portfolio in which they have documented the entire learning process. However, they will not do this completely on their own. students will be placed into engineering teams that will work, learn, and support one another through the entire process. Each team will also have a mentor from the teaching staff to oversee the process and provide timely feedback on a weekly basis. But perhaps I'm getting a bit ahead of myself and should explain how we've envisioned the learning environment for our students. Rather than having individual courses, the core would be organized into 2-week sprints related to the major knowledge disciplines of materials, structural analysis, and manufacturing. During these sprints, students will explore and learn the necessary discipline content through a series of online learning modules. Now, before I trigger some pandemic teaching stress disorder by mentioning the word online, let me clarify that what we are talking about here is very different from those experiences. We envision these online modules to be followed on campus in individual project rooms by the engineering teams. This form of learning environment will permit a level of student discussion and interaction not possible in a traditional lecture setting, and will help reinforce the collective learning responsibility of the team. Another benefit to the online learning approach is that it breaks down the core into many smaller modules, providing an opportunity for every staff member to contribute to and be more visible within the core, something that is in line with our desire to reinforce the collective departmental responsibility for education. Next to this online learning approach would be contact hours with instructors, centered around 2 parallel aerospace design assignments. The first assignment will require the student teams to apply what they've learned to the design of a hydrogen fuel tank. This will require the student teams to characterize engineering material properties in the lab, use these properties to develop structural models to analyze and design the structure, and develop a manufacturing and production plan to realize these designs. Such an assignment does wonders for illustrating the interconnection of all the topics within the core of the Master Track, but it also carries a major risk. Earlier struggles and errors made by students can grow over time, like a rolling snowball. To mitigate this risk, a second assignment will be run in parallel to the first one, the so-called reverse engineering assignment. In this assignment, students will be given the material data, structural models, and manufacturing plan of a completely different structural component. Instead of producing these deliverables, the student teams will be tasked with reverse engineering them to try and understand the material, modeling, and manufacturing choices that were made. Class-based discussions of these choices will provide a common context for teaching staff to provide feedback to students to help ensure that they will be successful in their own design process. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the starting point for the ASM core. Our past experience has shown us that not all students enter the track with the same level of knowledge and learning expectations. To address this, we have included an initial 2-week sprint dedicated to providing a soft landing for students within our track. The aim of this sprint is twofold. First, we want to provide students an opportunity to repair any deficiencies in their expected starting knowledge level. This will be achieved using formative entry tests to identify these deficiencies and provide personal feedback on online learning modules that can be followed to repair them. Second, we want to introduce students to the wide range of research and learning activities taking place in the department. This will be achieved through introductory lectures with the intention of establishing context and motivating students for what is to come rather than teaching new content. I feel like I'm forgetting something else. Oh, that's right, transversal skills. In addition to the main disciplines of knowledge contained in the 2-week sprints, we have identified 2 transversal skill sets that we want to include across the entire core, namely digital skills and sustainability, with a focus on life cycle analysis. These will be embedded within the previously described assignments, but will also have their own dedicated contact hours and online learning modules. Finally, we come to the issue of assessment. Instead of using a final written exam, we envision making students responsible for documenting their own learning process in a learning portfolio in order to show compliance with the learning objectives of the core. This will be facilitated by weekly mentor meetings between the engineering teams and their assigned mentor. If the engineering team and their members can successfully show they are in compliance with the learning objectives of the core, the teaching staff can certify them by issuing them a pass. No written exam, no numerical grade. Simply a cooperative effort between students and staff to help ensure we bring all of our students in compliance with the core learning objectives. Well, this is in essence the concept for the ASM core discussed and developed over that week-long exercise. At this point, it is a concept, but one the team feels very strongly in. We encourage all of you to openly discuss this proposed approach and keep an eye open for future departmental events where we will engage on this topic further. Thanks for listening.